You could bang their head against the wall repeatedly, and you got to worry about the dent on the wall.
Bitcoin here. That's probably why a lot of people came to the show. Curious to hear your updated views. We're obviously in 2026 now. For viewers who don't know, I want to talk about the debasement trade here, which just involves moving cash into hard assets like gold and Bitcoin to essentially protect against government-induced inflation, which essentially devalues currencies, fiat currencies. In 2025, we saw gold, silver, other precious metals essentially just continue to run up nonstop. But Bitcoin actually ended the year slightly negative, despite the debasement trade going on. British, if people are chasing more purchasing power, especially with U.S. government debt hitting 38 trillion and increasing by about 1 trillion every 75 days, why do you think Bitcoin was largely left out of the action last year?
Well, because one of the things, Raoul Powell has really done a lot of great work on this and simplifying it down for people to really understand. And the reality is that liquidity has not been flowing in the markets for the last 2.5, 3 years. There's been no real liquidity. Now, people say, well, if there's been no real liquidity, why is the S&P 500 and gold running? Well, it's like you can't confuse a concentration trade to liquidity flowing in the markets, right? Like these are not you should not confuse these two. Last year there were basically two trades. It was an AI trade and it was a gold, silver, and metals trade. And they've done really well. And gold, silver, and metals is an interesting one because typically when you look at it, gold and silver sniff out incoming liquidity. They don't kind of rally when the liquidity is happening as much as they do try and sniff out incoming liquidity. So they're going to go first, and they've done that pretty well. And it kind of makes me more and more bullish, especially with the changes that are coming to markets and to liquidity starting Jan 1st, really.
Do you think last year, going into 2025, there was any way to sort of know, maybe for the average person, that Bitcoin, or not Bitcoin, but gold, silver, were going to have the kind of run that they had?
I think it was difficult last year. You know, Basically the thing was this: everyone was waiting for liquidity and liquidity never came, and then of course things were delayed by like 3 months because you had this in the middle weird government shutdown situation, so liquidity was also paused because of that. So it was just tough. Like it was a weird set of events. We also had um, President Trump sort of causing volatility in the markets when it came to tariffs. One day the tariffs on, one day the tariffs off. That's great as a negotiating tool, right, to create uncertainty, but it's not great from a market's confidence perspective. And of course, again, I'll give him massive credit. Raul has simplified all of this down to one indicator, and that's the PMI, which is the business cycle, the confidence cycle. And if the confidence cycle is not ticking up, your risk assets are not moving. And so, that's what we're dealing with right now. And I think this is about to turn in Q1 of this year. So I think we're going to have a very, very, very bullish 2026 if the business cycle runs and the liquidity comes in, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of ifs, right? Of course, that's what markets are based on. But until then, you sit on it. And as far as gold goes, gold had a really good run. Silver had a really good run end of the year, and I had all my previous gold and silver friends calling me up and saying, "Oh my God, don't you wish you were in gold?" And I said, "Yeah, so wish I had not sold all my gold in 2020 and put it into Bitcoin at $5,000 a coin. Like it's stupid, right? They have their once a decade kind of move, and I think that's what we got here."
Okay. So you wouldn't make the case that after seeing a run like that, that maybe it's worthwhile to have some more diversification. I know there's people who are, the Bitcoin advocates, but then, they also own gold, and, they diversify into different assets in case we have a, situation like we did last year. But it sounds like that's not the view that you would take. You're still, you know, Bitcoin's going to win in the end over a long enough time span, 5, 10 years, even longer. holding Bitcoin only will win out.
Yeah, but look, but that's because of my risk profile, right? I'm in a completely different scenario to many people. So you got to assess what your risk profile is, and then make an investment decision from there. For me, you say the same thing that I told my gold friends in 2020 when I told them I'm selling all of my gold and silver and putting it into Bitcoin, which is if you can tell me exactly how many ounces of gold or silver came out of the ground yesterday, I'll move 50% of my net worth back into gold and silver. There's no way to tell. And I like absolute scarcity, and Bitcoin offers absolute scarcity, which is why, when I sold my gold in the 2000s and put it into Bitcoin at 5,000, it's 20x. Whereas gold, went up 50% after a decade. It's, they're very, they kind of have the same thesis, which is why I don't mind it. Like if some people want to put some into gold, that's not a problem for me. But for me and my investment thesis, my risk parameters, and my way of thinking, I want to be heavily exposed to Bitcoin.
Gotcha. Well, British, take us back to October 10th, 2025. Where were you, and what was running through your mind in the days before Bitcoin? It started to surge. It hit a new all-time high, and it looked like it could at least have a run like it did in 2017 and 2021 to end the fourth quarter. Take us back to that experience for you. I'm curious, what was going through your mind? Where were you? What were you thinking?
I don't actually know where I was. I can't remember. I think I was here in Dubai at that time, and you just see this market running, and I'm like, okay, that's kind of interesting. It's kind of fitting into this narrative that has been built up around the 4 year cycle where buy Bitcoin, or you sell Bitcoin basically 18 months after the halving, and you buy it 6 months before the halving. And it's like, this is kind of convenient. This is interesting. It's kind of convenient. And then obviously the market meltdown happened. Um, and that was that. And that kind of fed a lot of the narrative, right? A lot of the 4 year cycle narrative, because literally coincidence or not, and this is the thing, I don't really believe in coincidences. So when this thing happened, it was like, yeah, this kind of looks like, someone's trying to take advantage of this narrative as well, which is, you know 4 year cycle ends in October, big boom, 126 is the top, retail morons are going to sell. And guess what they did? They proceeded to sell. So, and we can see that, right? The big accounts were not selling. You had OGs that have been selling for a long time, but really big new holders weren't selling. It was the under 100 Bitcoin addresses that were dumping their Bitcoin into this, and it's like, well, or even less than that. Actually, the under tens were selling it the most. So it's like, well, it's pretty easy to manipulate the peasants.
Can we go into conspiratorial land a little bit there? Like, what do you think happened? I mean, there, like, it was triggered by a real event, right? The president tweeted, he threatened to increase tariffs on China by 100% or something like that, and it almost seemed like you said, it's hard to believe it's just a coincidence, right? It almost lined up too perfectly with, the energy and the vibe of everything going up and everyone thinking that we're going to have this 4 year cycle and then whack, boom. Um, what do you think happened there?
There's two sides to it. Look, the benefit of being a long-term holder is that none of this matters, right? Like, it's just, okay, we're now going down. We'll see how long this takes. But apparently, what happened was an exchange that had, a US dollar quote unquote stable coin broke its peg, apparently on Binance, and that caused a bunch of cascading liquidations. But it's kind of weird that it all kind of happened around the same time, right? Like, this is again, like, you add conspiracy on top of conspiracy on top of conspiracy. And you're like, yeah, I don't know here. So, if I was put it like this, let me be absolutely frank, right? If I was a big
Please.
player, if I was a big player and I had the opportunity to move the market like that with no consequences, I'd do it. I'd take the Bitcoin. I'd absolutely take the Bitcoin. This is the fucking jungle, right? So it's like, if you're sitting there going, I'm going to trade against, the best players in the market that kind of have, you know, a, a way to do this with no rules, none of the same kind of, well, not most of the, without most of the rules that are in equities, they're going to take advantage of it. They understand the game better than you. They have more liquidity than you. They understand how you think better than you do. They understand how to manipulate you. They understand everything. It's like the MSTR, MSCI situation that happened, right? Like MSTR started going down, everyone's shorting it. It's having the brunt of all of the downside volatility on Bitcoin. And then suddenly the MSCI news comes out, and I was like, this looks like short covering liquidity to me. And of course, MSTR started to kind of slow down its decline at that point. So yeah, markets are going to play games. That's why I like to just hodl and place my bets and wait for indicators that I kind of see in the market as reliable, kind of like sentiment changes. I like confidence changes. I like liquidity changes. I don't really pay attention to what the average person is doing.
Gotcha. And do you think that event is fully behind us at this point, the October 10th one, or does the market still need more time to sort of work through the massive liquidation and deleveraging?
Well, big buyers started coming back in. Large, whales started buying Bitcoin at a pace that they haven't done for a while. And today we're seeing a breakout on Bitcoin as well. So it kind of looks like it's behind us. We'll certainly see whether that's true or not. But it does kind of look like that event is now been flushed out.